Feminism and gender roles exposed. The distinction between biological sex and gender. Sex is a property of the biological characteristics of an organism. Gender is socially constructed, socially created. This is a powerful and totally revolutionary idea. We have the potential capacity to change the social relations in which we live. For my diversity project, I chose to present on the topics of feminism and gender roles. Although this issue may not be as prevalent as it may have been previously, it still has a play in our society today. Looking back, there is no distinct origin for where the issue of gender roles began, but instead was constructed based on the anatomical ability for women to bear children, feed children, and naturally have a more nurturing demeanor, where men are stronger, more dominant, protective, and physically have larger builds. Women know that when they give birth to a child, they are their mother. Men, on the other hand, are only confident in fathering a child when they know the sexual behaviors of the female. Therefore, dominance of the male gender came from dominating the woman after sexual intercourse for proof of fathering a child. A sense of subordinacy, a loss of independence, feelings of slavery within a marriage, all forced women to take a stand and fight for equality and opportunity. The transformation of gender relations since the beginning of the 20th century is one of the most profound social changes in human history. This change began with what we now call the first wave of the feminist movement. The first wave of feminism was concerned primarily with establishing a point of policy that women are human beings and should not be treated like property. Between the 1830s and early 1900s, women fought for equal contract, property rights, and suffrage. In August of 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, which allowed women the right to vote. Wyoming was the first to grant these privileges. Following this accomplishment was the second wave of feminism, which emerged from the wake of World War II, during which time many people, women included, were forced to enter the workforce. Many advancements for women occurred between the 1960s and 1990s, which included prohibiting discrimination in the workplace, discrimination based on gender, maternity leave, and equal rights in reference to adoption and abortion. It is important to note that the largest feminist organization, the National Organization for Women, or NOW, was developed and promoted during this time as well. It is the largest organization of female advocates in the U.S., with hundreds of thousands of members, currently fighting for abortion rights, access to reproductive health care, economic equality, LGBT community rights, and ending violence against women. It is important to note that I stated that NOW is actively fighting for these rights, seeing as the third wave of feminism is in real time. The third wave realizes that the first two waves focused on promoting equality for white females, so the current wave seeks to advocate for women of all races, all classes, and all ethnicities. The third wave began in the 1990s and continues today. It challenges the second wave of feminism's definition of what it is to be a woman. The movement of the third wave of feminism focused less on laws and the political process and more on individual identity. In today's day and age, the majority of mindsets believes that gender inequality can be seen as sexist, unfair, unjust, and frankly, discrimination. The next few slides will cover some more specific issues related to gender roles in feminism, including sexuality, occupations, salaries, and family dynamics. Sexuality. Reproductive rights for women include preventing unintended pregnancy, bearing healthy children, and choosing safe, legal abortion. According to the NARAL report card on reproductive rights, in 2016, 27 out of 50 states received an F, 6 out of 50 states received an A, and the rest fell somewhere in the middle. Obama tried to improve these statistics, and with Obamacare, covered one type of birth control per person from one of the 18 FDA-approved categories at no out-of-pocket costs. In 2009, 75 to 80% of voters voted yes to pro-choice. Until 1970, rape was only considered a crime if the assailant was not the spouse. Approximately 1 out of every 6 females will be victims of attempted or completed sexual assault, whereas 1 out of every 10 males will have this experience. In the 1960s, homosexual behavior was considered a crime under the sodomy laws, seen as immoral and shameful, where you could even lose your job. But in 2009, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the legalization of gay marriage arose. Prior to the 1830s, women were solely responsible for raising children and doing housework. There was no independence, and they simply had to abide by their husbands. During the second wave of feminism, all of this began to change. Women had to take over some positions in the workforce for their male counterparts while they were away at war. This time period proved pivotal that women were just as capable, and in some scenarios, better at performing jobs in all specialties. In 2009, a full-time housewife was a minority, and this was really the collapse of female domesticity. In 2012, 2 million men were stay-at-home fathers. Although social practices have shaped gender roles by defining what jobs a man and woman can do best, the gaps are closing. Currently, top jobs that are dominated by the female gender are registered nurses, elementary school teachers, social workers, counselors, taxpayers, human resource managers, and psychologists. In 2015, female full-time workers made only 80 cents for every dollar earned by a man, a gender wage gap of 20%. Women, on average, earn less than men in virtually every single occupation, for which there is sufficient earnings data for both men and women to calculate an earnings ratio. At the rate of change between 1960 and 2015, women aren't expected to reach pay equality with men until the year 2059. On the topic of pay, it's important to bring up that maternity and paternity leave is not equivalent. In general, most companies offer their female pregnant employees 6 to 12 weeks of paid leave for having a baby. On the other hand, there are companies that do not offer any paid paternal leave to fathers, and the ones that do offer a drastically smaller time frame. Because of this, only 13% of men who took parental leave received pay compared to 21% for women. 3 states, California, New Jersey, and Rhode Island, provide paid family leave for both mothers and fathers on an equal basis. Secretary Perez quotes, "Fathers taking parental leave helps not just children but moms too by changing who changes the diapers and the whole culture around work and family." Family formations have drastically changed over the last few decades. The word patriarchy literally means rule by father, which was the main concept for gender relations previously. Now, however, married with children has turned into increased divorce rates, single parents, gay and lesbian parents, and an increase in adoption rates. Because family is a pivotal site where gender roles and gender relations are produced, this factor alone could prove to be a huge participant in this generation's mindset. As a whole community, there are benefits and challenges to changing social mentalities. For gender equality, some benefits would include a decrease in divorce rates, a decrease in depression, decreased suicide rates, and the idea that the greater the equality, the greater the life. While challenges would include the elderly people who are set in their ways and not willing to change their mindsets, non-liberal mindsets, and currently a non-supportive president. For women, benefits would include an increase in independence, an increase in responsibility, entering the workforce in any occupation, and equal pay. And believe it or not, there are benefits for men as well. I believe that currently the concept of gender equality is still seen as a feminist cause, meaning that the only people to benefit from this balance are women, when in fact gender equality would open up more opportunities for men as well, including sharing housework responsibilities, jobs that they actually enjoy doing, reducing stereotypes for males, which would allow them to show more emotions, and less financial pressures. At the end of the day, oppression for one means oppression for all. If women are forced into certain social roles, men are thereby forced to fill up the vacant space that some women could have filled. Without gender equality, no nation will see the full capacity of its economy or education. No nation can operate at its fullest when half of its population has no rights or no voice.